Welcome back to Moose and Loose Extra. Today what I've got for you is an Indian diplomat that was expelled or called back to India, but speaks on Vasi Capello's show. We've also got the funniest clip you're ever going to see of Khalistanis in Canada. It's just absolutely ridiculous, these guys. We've also got a high commissioner on Vasi's show talking about this very same situation. This is really heating up. So let's jump into this. First off, we got this interview with Vasi, and she's interviewing this guy here, McKay. He's the Canadian High Commissioner to India. Just listen to what this guy has to say.
Insofar as when you say that they might have not cooperated for domestic political purposes, what do you mean specifically?
Well, I think this whole series of incidents is really a fiasco for the Indian government. I think there were a series of mistakes made. There was the strategic error first by some Indian officials to engage in violent crimes up to the level of or to contract out, I should say, violent crimes up to the level of murder across North America. Again, a serious strategic error on their part. There were tactical errors, of course, that led them to be caught, as they have been exposed now. There have been diplomatic errors on the part of India in its response to Canada. But I think in order to divert attention and distract from this, the Indian government response, rather than collaboration, has been to attack and vilify Canada. It's taken a very different approach, as has been noted, with the United States of America. Of course, the United States of America is the USA and plays a very different role globally than Canada does, has a very different relationship bilaterally with.
So he's basically saying that Canada has 100% definitive proof and India's in the wrong. We've got a real stalemate here between the two countries.
India than Canada does. So India has elaborated a kind of a false distinction between what has happened in the United States and what has happened in Canada, and it's been very successful for them in terms of domestic media coverage. But internationally, I don't think that's the case. There's been some real damage to brand India as a result of all of this.
Part of the distinction that they've drawn between the U.S. and Canada, from what we've heard so far from their government, is that they have accused our government of essentially being too welcoming and not, I guess, not taking the right course of action when it comes to Sikh separatists, who they classify as extremists. How would you respond to that accusation?
Well, I think Canada is a rule of law country, and we're dedicated to law enforcement. And if we learn of and have credible information about violent extremism or terrorism that is occurring in Canada or emanating from Canada, we take it really seriously. And we follow our own rules in investigating all of this. So the Indian government has complained for a long time about certain activities that take place on the streets in Canada. But we don't have the evidence and information that we would need to make any arrests of these people that they would like to see arrested. And I think it's worth understanding here that we have some real differences in law between Canada and India. I'll give you one concrete example: flag burning. Flag burning in Canada is legal as long as public safety is not endangered. When a flag is burned, we consider it to be constitutionally protected free speech. It falls in the category of awful but lawful. In India, on the other hand, burning a flag is illegal. Burning the flag of India or any other nation. So I think
burning a flag should be illegal. I mean, it's ridiculous that in this country you can't burn a rainbow flag, but you can burn the Canadian flag. Why isn't it freedom of speech to burn a rainbow flag? There were some kids who were just charged recently doing that. How can someone say that if that's someone's free speech? I don't like rainbows, so I just want to burn the flags. You can't. A country is broken and it needs to be fixed.
Indians find it incomprehensible that some of the activities that occur on the streets in Canada occur here and there are no arrests as a result. But frankly, that's the way Canadian law works. It's different than India, and the Indian government needs to come to accept that.
Is it then your position that, they say that there are more than 24 people they want to see extradited, that the evidence does not exist to support those extraditions?
Well, we're certainly seeking more. In fact, it is the case that the Indian government has, I believe, 27 outstanding extradition requests to Canada. And let me be clear that in the past, where India has shared sufficient information, we have successfully extradited people from Canada to face law, the rule of law in India. So our extradition process can work. India is an important extradition partner for Canada. But in the recent cases, or the ones that are outstanding now, 27 of them, 26 of those files have been returned to India to seek further substantiation, further information to meet Canadian evidentiary standards. So frankly, on 26 of the 27, the ball is in India's court and has been for some time.
It's funny, the guy in Indian news I showed on the channel here a few days ago was saying he's going to try to pull in Trudeau into court in India. I wonder if he's one of those 26. Wouldn't that be funny if Trudeau gets sent over there for judgment in India? And
then I believe there's one remaining one that's under review here in Ottawa. So I think it's a diversion tactic to claim that Canada has been uncooperative in these law enforcement matters. I consider it to be simply not true.
I will leave it on that note.
It's funny, whatever that notification sound the whole time, and the whole situation is so serious, and then that would bloop, bloop. Looking at the comments here, I remember his 2-minute meeting with the MEA. India summoned him and thrown out from India. This guy must be pissed. Evidence, trust me, bro. India needs evidence that stands legal scrutiny in India, as you need evidence for extradition cases. Why double standards? You guys have no evidence at all, so what a mess. But we do have another clip here of Khalistanis in Toronto. Check this out. So they've got Modi here, a little Modi cardboard cutout. This is so ridiculous. Okay, we're gonna mute some of this audio, but I mean, like, they have him dressed up in this jail outfit, and it's just the stupidest thing. Like, these guys got to do something better with their time. He's smacking it with his shoe. They're taking their shoe off. These guys are so stupid. I'm sorry. I mean, this just keeps going on and on and on. Guys, go do something. Get a hobby. Climb a mountain. Do something. Next up, we got this clip here. Expelled Indian diplomat calls RCMP allegations politically motivated.
And I want to ask you about the future of that relationship. But again, I keep hearing you say it's about the evidence. It's about the evidence that the Prime Minister himself said there's no hard evidence. At the time, he was talking about intelligence. The RCMP, our policing agency, which is independent from politics, from the federal government, from the political motivation that you...
Vassy, please. We all know the RCMP is controlled by Trudeau. Come on.
Describe. It is an independent policing agency.
No.
Says they have evidence on this. Why don't you want to see it?
See how politically independent they are. We can discuss it till the cows come home.
They are.
That's your view. I will give you my view. So till 2 days before, they said there is no evidence to share, and in PFI, in the Foreign Interference Committee meeting, and all of a sudden there was all the evidence in the world available with them. So let's not go there. And the political motivation, I have been talking about it for a long time. No official, no institution can remain completely aloof of what's happening politically.
When you talk about political motivation, I imagine your government has referenced this in the past week, that you're referencing the Prime Minister in your estimation courting the six separatist vote. What evidence do you have that the Prime Minister would use a desire for a certain voting bloc to accuse one of our most significant trading partners and people-to-people relationships of the kind of crimes that he has? Like, do you actually think that he would take it so lightly and care so much about his own sort of political victories to put this relationship at risk?
He would. Now, I'm not saying this guy's innocent. If you watch the entire thing, it's very long-winded. He keeps saying, like, oh, they didn't have they didn't share their agenda. They didn't share their agenda. I think this guy's a liar. Trudeau's a liar. They're both liars. That's what I think's going on. Now, does Trudeau have this 100% rock-solid evidence proof? I don't know. The RCMP say they have evidence. Who knows? There's a whole lot of funk coming from both sides here.
Isn't that hard to believe?
I think Mr. Trudeau should respond to it, because that's what he did.
You're accusing him of, and I don't see any evidence of that.
But the problem is that when he accused, he himself has admitted that there was no hard evidence.
But there was intelligence shared with him by our Five Eyes allies.
On the basis of intelligence, if you want to destroy a relationship, be my guest.
But the intelligence,
and that's what he did.
But perhaps the intelligence, as it's described in this indictment, is about a crime so severe in nature that it's impossible for him to ignore. Could that not be understandable?
Listen, if there is such a compelling evidence, Why haven't they gone to the court of law so far?
Well, the RCMP has. The 8 individuals have been charged with homicides,
but
22
that is not
charged
the case.
in relation to extortion.
That is not the case. Case is linking of so-called agents of the government of India. That case is murder. And any criminal who is here, some of them came here as innocent international students, and they turned into criminals in this country. I don't know what happened.
Sure.
How did they get influenced?
Oh God, this is going down rabbit holes here. Anytime she mentioned the Five Eyes allies, I just laugh because the Indian news was calling them the 5 blind mice, and they're like just doing that stuff. So we'll jump back over there in a second. But first off, we've got the Guardian here. They've talking about drive-bys, arson, all this kind of stuff, and whether India is behind it. It says here at least 2 of these events are now believed to be a part of a wide-ranging campaign of intimidation across Canada, orchestrated by India's government. You're going to hear in a second that Vasi says they basically have someone who was in the rooms who heard that stuff being said. There's essentially proof. That's what they're saying. India's saying no. This guy seems very much, just from looking at his body language and his rate of speaking, his hand gestures, tension in his body, his tension in his face, he seems like he's lying. He's trying to cover this up. I don't know. Something stinks here.
And any criminal who is here, some of them came here as innocent international students, and they turned into criminals in this country. I don't know what happened.
Sure.
How did they get influenced? I have no information on that.
Well, they're alleging that that's where you and your colleagues play a role. That's what I'm saying. That I understand that you're saying you don't, but the allegation connected to these that the RCMP very clearly presented is that you and your colleagues were involved in coercing these individuals in some ways to commit crimes, some in violent in nature, in order to further your cause.
Just to reframe your thing a bit, if they have evidence of what we have coerced, which can be legally accepted, why are they not sharing it? Because
I think they wanted
because the evidence, what they call these evidence, are hearsay, and I know for sure that they go from one person to the other, asking them about the hearsay. Most of them are those who are pro-Khalistan elements, anti-India elements, anti-India Canada elements, and then they take that as evidence.
The only thing I would respond to say to that is that I've read the U.S. indictment very closely, which is similar in nature in the allegations that are being made. And it's not just hearsay. They have an individual who has listened and been a part of the conversations directly with a person who represents the government of India, who is telling them to murder someone who espouses the views that you are concerned about. That is not just hearsay.
Does Canada has that?
Well, I'm saying this involves Niger.
These are 2 different countries, 2 different crimes taken place. The place of crime are different, and therefore I would expect very much the Canadian government to come out clean, showing me the evidence of anything.
And you can take issue with them. I understand that. I'm saying, from my perspective, having read it, that isn't just hearsay, that the connection they lay out to the government of India and Mr. Nijar's murder is not just hearsay, it is based on evidence that they have spelled out.
That is why there is a high-level committee and talking to them. Canadians have not given, I shouldn't say Canadians, the Canadian agencies which are talking to us have not given a shred of evidence, including on the 12th October meeting in Singapore, for us to act upon. You cannot, see, gone are the days when the so-called developed countries or Western Bloc would ask a developing country, you must do this, and they will run after them and do it. We are a rule of law country, as Canada prides itself to be a rule of law country. So,
yeah, okay, man. This guy seems like he's backed in the corner and he's just trying to get India's reputation out of a jam, out of a hard spot. I'm thinking India did this. I'm not sure. It seems like India did this. This is terrible. No country should ever interfere in another country. I've heard about these things. One of them actually happened not too far from where I am here, a couple hours just south of me, where they did one of those drive-bys in a residential neighborhood. That's absolutely obscene. To say the rule of law country, it's like, maybe you guys should clean up your scammer situation first, where hundreds of millions of dollars is stolen from people around the world. They set up in these little office towers, and a whole bunch of them, and they have these whole scripts and stuff on how to take advantage of people. Usually they target older people to steal their money. And it's like, if you want more credibility on the world stage, you got to clean up their own crap in your own country first. And something like this is very bad for either both Canada or India, whoever ends up being right here.
Which are suitable for my own legal process. So therefore, These are
They
two.
wanted to give it. That's all I'll say. They wanted to give
Why haven't they given
evidence.
it earlier? And if they have not, then on what basis these statements are being made?
He goes on to ramble here, but basically, like, they don't want that Khalistani movement growing in Canada. I don't think it should be either. I mean, as you saw earlier, it's crazy. You know, they like, smacking a printout of Modi's face with shoes, saying horrible things that you're not allowed to say in Canada. You know, we've all seen the death to, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's out of control. So while I understand India's point of view on that, they can't just go willy-nilly in our country. That's ridiculous. So let me know what you guys think down below. Looking in the comments section here, what do we have? They expelled him 12 hours after India came back for security concerns. Canada is acting like a jealous ex to its very bone. Summary of the story: those days are gone when so-called developed nations used to give instructions to developing countries like India. Haha, great job from this gentleman. I feel ashamed of what my country has become. Trudeau has to go. How stupid is this to think that any diplomat would waive their immunity for petty questioning, provide proof and follow the international process? Simple, right? And when India called back those 6 diplomats who've been named and endangered, Trudeau government claimed that it expelled them. Why would you expel the ones so quickly whom you've wanted to interrogate? He exposed Western hypocrisy politely. This is a mess of a situation. There you have it, a really messy situation. It's really hard to even follow. You know, Canada is saying we have proof. America is backing. India says no, there's no proof. I don't know. What do you think? This situation will get sorted out eventually here. Maybe it requires Pierre Poilievre to get involved as the Prime Minister of Canada, so maybe it will take more time than we were expecting. One thing's for sure, things are about to heat up here in Canada next week.